Actual arrival of Peyton Manning. Here's Willis McGahee.
Basically, he can really take it to another level. We were young, and I think those guys got the jitters out of them last year. Even though we did go to the playoffs and represent the AFC West, it was just something that we were missing. We were missing that general to take charge in tough situations. And I think he brings that to the table. And once those guys see him out there, I think they're going to rise to the occasion and just have a breakout year.
All right, so there's a hidden headline there. Not only is that an endorsement of Peyton Manning, it sounds like it's an indictment of Tim Tebow. And you on Mike and Mike earlier this morning had Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas on, and we don't have the sound available now, but quickly just paraphrase what he said.
Endorsement.
Can you go as far as lukewarm?
What did he trash? No.
He didn't trash him.
I asked Demaryius on the air, you guys had a thing going, had a real wavelength the last 4 or 5 games. He said, well, we made a couple of plays together. A couple of plays? Are you kidding me?
And talked about he was a good guy, but didn't really talk about his skill set.
Going forward, he said, well, he's dedicated and he's a leader, so I'll say he'll do okay. Do okay? Come on. These are his team. That was his #1 go-to guy, was Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the guy, Willis McGahee, whose career Tim Tebow saved last year, who had the #1 rushing offense in the league, the Denver Broncos. Why did they? Because of Tim Tebow. So
McGahee didn't get any of those yards?
Yeah, he got a lot of them because people were scared that Tebow was going to go one way and McGahee got to go the other way. So I can't resist this one. So McGahee has the audacity to say we didn't have a general last year when Tim Tebow led them to 6 fourth-quarter comebacks. Now, I get it, Hugh, that Tebow is a young player. Maybe he can't command the huddle the way Peyton can at age 36, but we lacked a general? Are you kidding me? That's all the gratitude you have for a kid who came in and saved your career? You're 30 years old, Willis McGahee. I'm not even sure he's going to be back. They're going to try to replace him with Joseph Adai next year. Do Colts West here. I'm ashamed for the Broncos because they're going to give him no respect, no gratitude for what he did to save their season.
How much credit does Tim Tebow do?
75%. And as soon as I say that, well, they were 1-4 when he took over. They were 7-24 over their previous 31 games, the worst stretch in the National Football League. What was the one big change they made? The catalyst was at quarterback.
But maybe they look at the last 3 games when, first Tebow was winning and nobody was expecting anything. Then they got to the point where they needed him to win to get in the playoffs. And then those 3 games, skip all losses. He had 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, a 41% completion rate, didn't throw for over 200 yards, and they backed into the playoffs. Maybe they looked at it and said, now when it's on the table and they expect something
How do you
from
explain
him,
that,
he didn't
Bob?
do it.
Was that the league catching up to what it was he was doing?
I can explain it very quickly.
When the games mattered,
the first game was Tom Brady, right? And that's the first of your 3 games. And Tim Tebow played great. In fact, Trent Dilfer said after the game, I saw extraordinary progress from Tim Tebow in that game.
And then you watched him against Buffalo, right?
Okay, wait a second. Yeah, I did. I watched the first 3 quarters when he played very well. And the defense gave up 160 yards rushing and put him in a hole. Down 24-13 going to the 4th quarter. And for the first time all year, Tebow tried to do things he can't do. He started flinging it all over the field and started throwing pick sixes. Okay? And the last game against Kansas City, I said all year, he had 1 bad game and that was it. I cannot explain one thing he did in that game because it was pathetic.
And that was a big game to get. It was like a playoff game to get in. Now, they eventually wound up backing in.
Okay? And then what happened?
Was like a playoff.
Then what happened the next week?
And then Pittsburgh disrespected
316 yards passing? Really?
Yeah, they disrespected him.
Okay. As far as his teammates disrespecting him, I totally disagree with that. It's more, do you know how hard it is to work with a guy when you don't know what he's going to do at any given time? And that's basically what Willis McGahee was saying. It had to be certain times in practice where they didn't have a clue what direction they were going to go. And as receivers, as running backs, and everybody, you have to work that much harder. As a defense, you have to work that much harder. I remember playing with Bobby Hoying and being in the same situation. Emmett Thomas was our defensive coordinator. He would come to the meetings and he would tell us, hey, guys, you know what they're going to do on offense. You guys can't give up 14 points in a game. You can't do it. And you know you're going to play the whole game. Go play football. This is the same thing with the Denver Broncos. They knew that whenever Tim Tebow was on the field, he had the ability to make plays late in the game, but you had to keep the game tight. And you always had to be aware, as a receiver, as a running back, that he might improvise, so you always had to be on your heels at all times. He made great plays, cannot take that away from him. But when you talk about a guy that could come in like a Peyton Manning and be a leader that's going to have direction, that takes a lot of pressure off of everybody else. You can just go out there and play football instead of worrying about what your quarterback is going to do or what he's not going to do.
Okay, I'm offended when you stereotype Tebow's whole season as terrible three quarters followed by a great fourth quarter. Okay, look, against the New England Patriots in Denver, Tim Tebow played very well in the first quarter. They rushed the ball very well. They had a chance to go up 20-7, and they decided to kick a field goal to go to 16-7. Then what happened to your defense you're talking about? They got blown off the field by Tom Brady. So don't give me, we got to keep it close, because Tebow almost broke it open. Okay, at Minnesota, what happened? Tebow had to outscore a defense that gave up 32 points to Christian Ponder, who threw for almost, his offense had 490 total yards. That's terrible. And Tebow scored, with a lot of help from his friends, 35-32.
Yeah, but be careful about that with Minnesota's defense. On the side for Tim Tebow, they gave up double-digit leads in the first half, in the second half of their first three games.
And their secondary was decimated.
It was terrible. So let's just be careful.
Here's the bottom line to the discussion. This is where I'm going to agree with you, because I'm giving Tim Tebow 75% credit for last year. It creates deep-seated resentment on the part of his teammates. So they're giving him no parting gifts. There's no thank you, Tim, today from anybody. They're more like good riddance because we want the credit back.
Privately, I disagree. I think there were some guys who privately, maybe not publicly, Skip, believe like the whole Peyton Manning, he's the savior. Like, they did make the playoffs and win a playoff game, and they're probably saying a little bit like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, we weren't the Colts.
Well, they're not saying it publicly.
No, I know, but I think that there's some guys.
What percent do you give him? Well, how much of it was due to Tim Tebow's play?
I say 50%.
Thank you. For you, that's big.
I think that's fair.
Okay, if you both will go 50, I will honor that.
That's fair. I
will. I seriously, because for you, that's big. For you,
Actually, I thought Rob would be at 25, maybe lower, and I thought you'd be at 30-40%.
Because you know what? And Hugh's right. It's a quarterback league, and we know it. When you talk about Super Bowls, you always say Tom Brady's won 3.
You don't talk about
this, right? You talk about quarterbacks. So they get the credit when you win, and they get the blame when they lose.
Okay, so Peyton Manning walks in the door, and now it's like, okay, Peyton, they did this much last year. Yeah. Don't you think even the players are expecting to take it up another notch?
They're excited for what Peyton brings to the table, his knowledge of the game, the respect that he gets, and the fact that in the fourth quarter, he can actually throw the football down the field and sustain drives and gash defenses. That's what they like about it. I mean, he's a general. He's a field general.
Well, Elvis Dumerville is excited, among other teammates. He said, quote, when you play the Broncos, you really have to come ready now. I mean, there is a sense there that all of a sudden
that's all I've heard
they are
from
an
anybody.
force. Yeah, I mean, it's coming from all corners of the locker room. All right, next topic.